Hey, how's it going?
Oh, you know, being a basketball player.
Cool, cool. Let's see. Think I'm good to go.
I invited you to the party, and now it's a party. And I'm going to give you the leadership powers.
Cool. Um, so I know it's been a few weeks. I'll kind of give you the update as far as things are going for me. Things actually went pretty well after our session last time. Had a lot to work on, and for a while it was pretty frustrating. Things kind of got worse before they got better. But since then, my MMR has been averaging about 100 points higher than it was, which is great. Kind of slowly making that grind towards Master League. And ZVT has been really strong for me, but and actually ZVZ has been pretty good too. But ZVP is still quite a struggle. I'm probably like win rates around 35%, so that is really holding me down.
Cool.
Yeah, so I was thinking maybe we could just start with that and maybe kind of make that the main focus today, if that makes sense.
Sure. Sounds good to me. I have the notes from the previous session just to reference some stuff. The 4-minute Overlord sack against Terran was one of the most important goals. 70 worker economy versus 3 base Terran. And then ZVZ Overlord scouting the exits from the opponent's base and the entrances to your base.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that's perfect yet, but it's certainly gotten a lot better. That was really one of the main things I focused on was the that 4-minute scouting and all that. Although I'm sure we'll watch games where I miss it, but.
Tomorrow, I think I'm going to be doing a bunch of Protoss Zerg versus Protoss games against a European guy.
Okay.
And
I will check that out.
Yes. Pass me lead.
Shit.
Rip.
Do you want to restart this?
We can 2x it. It's not a huge deal.
Alright, sorry.
No problem. So ZVP. So one of the things that is a really key aspect of CVP, but sometimes we get lost in the woods, is understanding how to take small initiatives and get the opponent to disclose what they're doing. Protoss has a lot of sneaky stuff that they can pull, and I think that's part of why people struggle with the matchup a little bit more than versus Terran and versus Zerg. It's a little bit less honest. Yeah. I don't know if you saw GSL Codes last night, but SOS is kind of the master of dishonesty.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but I will, obviously.
Yeah. So the first thing that we'll touch on, pause for a second. First thing that we'll touch on that's a easy early game fix that will help you over the course of the game is thinking about your spawning pool placement as a drone shield against zealots where you can plug a bunch of spines in. So SimCity only really matters for Zerg in 2 cases. One case is when you're walling off in ZVZ against Speedlings, and the other case is when you're creating SimCity against Zealot Warpins in the late game. So I put my spawning pool back here, where it's kind of next to this extractor, and there's a 1 spine crawler hole to plug. And then once you get 70 to 80 drones, you put a spine or 2 back there, and the Zealots derp around for days before they get anything done, and you have all the time in the world to respond to it. So that's a early game fix. There's nothing else going on at this stage, so you might as well place pool in a smart place to plug spines later.
So you're just trying to limit surface area around a spine.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, my thinking, because I've been a little traumatized by adepts, so I was like, oh, I don't want any holes for them to wedge themselves into, but I guess there is anyway. I don't know.
I would say that if there are adepts that are just overwhelming your base and you don't have units for them, you have a bigger problem of not knowing when to make speedlings. Because if you see they're going for adepts and they shade across the map, you have time to make lings, and when they come into your creep, you surround them and kill them. The reason the spine crawler in the late game against Zealot is really important and why that's the priority is because there is a situation in the game where you're maxed, you have 200 supply, and you're trying to kick in the opponent's 4th or 5th base over here, and you don't actually have army units to go back there. So that's the more important thing. If there are depths in your base, that's where your army should be in the early to mid game. In the late game, your army might be taking an objective out on the map, so you need to make sure that your sim city on your side of the map was good in the early game.
Cool, that makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah, honestly, one of the biggest issues I have with ZVP is just that I hardly ever get to play it. That just at diamond level on NA, there just aren't that many Protoss players. So they play, PvZ all day, and I hardly ever get to play it.
Did I play against you with my Protoss last time?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, it's diamond-ish level, so that might be a fun exercise.
Well, my ZVP is goldish level, but yeah, that could be good.
Yeah, I could point out what you need to be doing better. Yes, that's one of the difficult things too, is there can be a lot of weaknesses in your approach to a matchup. Like, say you're bad against Phoenixes, for example. I don't know if you actually are, but as an example, but you only face Protosses on the ladder who go Phoenixes once every 10 ZVP games, which is very rare if you don't even face Protosses that often. So you kind of keep that weakness because you never get the opportunity to practice it.
Yeah, that's I think a big issue for me, is just I'll play against something and have all these ideas and okay, here's what I can do better, and then it's like a week before I see it again.
Okay. Looks like you got Overlord speed. Okay, you see 2 Phoenixes. Pause for a second. If you go Overlord speed, it should be a double scout every time, because the chances of getting a scout are double, basically, and additionally, if they're going for something like Phoenixes, your Overlords that are across the map are dead anyway, so they might as well die a glorious death where they scout something useful, rather than just be like, oh crap, I'm dead, and I'm just going to float here until I'm eliminated from the game. So Overlord speed means you need to double scout every time. You're also weighing Overlord speed as an investment at this stage against an earlier melee attack. I usually take melee attack first, unless it's a big map where it's hard to scout. This map, I send the Overlord back here, over here, and then kind of into the main. Usually scout the sneaky stuff in the back if you take that route, and you also dodge the Stalker. So that's the route that I take, but if you're going Overlord speed, that's fine, but you need to think about that as, this is my first big investment after Ling speed, and I need to make something of this. So you did scout 2 Phoenixes, kind of by the Phoenixes chasing your Overlord, but you didn't scout the 2 Stargates. Let's say, as an example, that you did, where you had one Overlord over here, and it went in and scouted the main, and you had an Overlord at the natural, and it scouted the natural, and you saw everything. Here, I would say you can spam queens and drones really hardcore, and just have a little Ling presence here, so you can see when they take a third, and if they shade some adepts or something. But their gateway count is low. They only have 1. They have a bunch of Stargates, so you would just spam queens like there's no tomorrow and take a 4th base. Because Phoenixes cannot deny bases. They can just deny workers that are transferred between bases, and I guess like Ravager pushes and stuff they can clean up really easily.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
I played against...
Sorry, go ahead.
I played against Rotterdam yesterday, and he went for, I think it was double or triple Stargate Phoenix, and I was spamming queens, and I ended up making 3 spores per base because he went up to around 15 Phoenixes. And if they're going for that many Phoenixes, their ground army is going to be kind of weak. So you can usually beat up their 3rd probe line with Ling Bane. You don't even try to make Hydras against that, because they'll be picking away at your Hydra count as soon as you start making them. And if they have that many Phoenixes, they can still dive spores, and they won't really lose that many, because the damage is distributed between them, and they have shields that recharge. So the idea is you want to spam queens to anchor your bases, and you want to get to Hive Tech for Ultra, because Ultra ends up being a counter unit against air, because the main counters to Ultra would be Immortals, which are robo units. Ultras absorb carrier damage really well. They absorb Oracle damage really well. They ignore Oracle traps because they're frenzied. So you want to think about, all right, they're going for double Stargate Phoenix. That means they're not going to have a really strong ground army to push into my base. And I'm going to really shine at Hive Tech if I get there with some upgrades and 4 base saturation.
So if they go heavy Phoenix, you pretty much just ignore the Phoenix and try to get to Hive.
Yeah, you can go for Burrow Infestor Fungal. That can really pay off. That's better than going for Hydras usually.
Okay. Yeah, I think I did go Hydras this game, although I think I went Ultras as well. I don't know.
You can keep going, I'm just typing notes.
Okay.
You can add a Hydra Den to support your Queens and Ultras and stuff. Emphasizing creep spread is really good. Phoenixes can't deny creep.
Yeah, I think my creep spread was pretty poor this game. It's usually decent, I think, but not this game.
Well, you only have 3 Queens and you're making a 4th right now. If you have Phoenixes at this count, you can make like 15 Queens and not be punished by it.
Oh well, okay.
Queen is a unit that it's not going to kill the opponent, but once you get to tier 3 units like either Broodlords or Ultras, then you're extending the life of those units. So it ends up being a really huge asset at tier 3 tech. Tier 2 tech is just a good way to stay alive and to keep your bases really clean. So if you had, for example, better creep spread and your bases were connected with creep, you could put a spore here where this queen is, and then the transfer would be pretty much protected.
Okay.
Going double Evo is forgivable against Sky as well. Like
Yeah,
usually I'd say it's not good, but
yeah, I usually don't unless I am playing Skytoss.
77 drones, yeah.
Well, I'm good at dead.
You can just click your overlords to a spore. Makes it a little bit easier on yourself.
Yeah.
One thing that I do sometimes, if I'm against Phoenixes like this, the Hydra solution is okay. I wouldn't say it's the best if they're going tons of Phoenix, but you have traded some of them out. Is you can have your Hydras in your Queen group, and you can still beat up this base with Ling Bane. Because you have Bane speed, and you have good upgrades for your Banes, so if you just ran 8 Banes into that base, they lost all their probes.
Yeah. Yeah, this point in the game is where I usually really struggle with just kind of knowing what to do. I feel like, okay, they're getting into a late game tech, and I haven't killed them yet, and I usually just feel kind of helpless. Like, even though I know he's only on 3 bases, I just struggle to know, like, I mean, so many times I'll just throw away an army trying to kill him, or then I just sit back and he gets up to carriers or just really scary things that I can't kill. So this is just like a really, I don't know, weak point in the game for me. Just never sure what to do.
Okay. Well, actually, do you want to just go through the game I played against Roddy? Because he goes for pretty much the same style.
Sure,
and then we can just step by step see what it looks like and what all the counter pieces mean.
Yeah, that
Pass me
could
lead.
be good. Go.
How fortunate that we got an example game yesterday. Excellent.
Yeah, let's. Is he Svetlana Bay?
Why? What does that mean?
I don't know.
Oh.
Just didn't know that was Rotterdam.
Yeah, he has this account, and there's one that's called the Notorious, and he has a Rotterdam one.
Okay, cool.
He is a man of many mysteries.
Yeah. I don't end up watching the stream all that often, I guess.
pretty cool. Helps me with my Protoss a little bit.
Yeah. Might be good for me just to see it from the Protoss perspective.
Mm-hmm. So the opening build isn't super important here. Taking the gold base. It nets you a little bit of an advantage. It's not tremendous. You can also take the gold as a third. I took it as a natural. And I lose a lot of drones to adept, so I'm actually kind of curious how many I lose. But still end up winning. With the fungo. Scouting the third base timing is important.
So that was, what, like 4 minutes?
Mm-hmm. Roundabout, yeah. At your level, they might not take it at that time, not because they don't want to, but just because they're late.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've lost a lot. Ouch. 15 drones. No biggie.
Yeah.
So double Stargate, double Phoenix, double Chrono Boost. Oh my goodness. Okay, so when you're feeling down in the dumps and you're behind against Skytoss, remember this game. 32 drones are dead.
Okay. Now, did you sack an Overlord, or did you scout the front?
I don't think I know yet that he's going
Okay.
Phoenixes until they show up. Just making one sport per base is pretty good, and then once you see more. Okay, now I know.
Okay.
Cat's out of the bag. Okay, so I'm droning up. And then now I think at this point, it's pretty clear that he's going for lots of Phoenixes. I also have the metagame value that he really likes to go mass Phoenix, not just a few.
Yeah. So you've just kind of concluded that it's double Stargate?
Yeah. Single Stargate, well, one of the general principles of Protoss and Legacy of the Void as opposed to Heart of the Swarm is our economy grows a lot faster since we start with 12 workers at the beginning of the game, and we get more supply per base, so a Nexus gives more supply than it used to. Generally speaking, whenever they're investing in tech, they tend to make 2 of whatever it is. So it's either going to be double Robo Immortal production or double Stargate Phoenix. It's just one of the ways that the economy kind of builds up. If there was an Oracle that hit my base at right around 4 minutes, I would think that it's single Stargate first, and maybe they're going to add on some later. But in this case, I saw no Stargate units, and then all of a sudden there were 8 Phoenixes in the game.
Right.
So it would make the most sense that there were 2 Stargates. So my goal here, I'm going Infestation Pit, I'm going Hydra Range plus 2 melee, and then notice I'm forward on the map with my Zerglings, because I can tell that he's investing pretty much all of his gas into air, and his ground's going to be a little bit on the weak side.
So you're just kind of looking for holes?
Yep. Just fighting at this, fighting at that.
Okay.
I went a little bit bananas on the spores. I think it's better than taking tons of damage, because I already took tons of damage. So it's what, like 3 to 4 spores. Pretty nice deterrent.
It was a lot.
Yeah, this opponent made more Phoenixes than your opponent, I think, by about 4 or 5.
Yeah, probably.
So against yours, I think 2 spores per base would be fine. But if they're going, what is this? 15. 15 Phoenixes, you can go 3 to 4 spores. So I'm going Pathogen Glands. Infestors are very, very good against Skytoss. I think they're better than Vipers in general. You can Neural Parasite and grab carriers, and you can also fungal groups of interceptors, and it's kind of, you choose whichever one fits the situation better.
Okay.
And then the unique choice against Skytoss that you don't go for against ground is going for Ultras. The reason Ultras aren't really a part of the meta against ground Protoss is because they can spam a tier 2 unit and hard counter the Ultras, whereas with Skytoss they don't have that ability. And Void Rays are kind of bad units against Zerg because of Queens. Queens and Hydras. If you're making a Hydra Queen, then Void Rays are not really worth it. So I'm going Hive, I'm taking double Evo, Adrenal Glands. You can go ham on the different types of upgrades and stuff. And this fungal was like a huge game changer. So all the Phoenixes are dead. Surprise.
Feels good.
Yep. Burrow Infestor Fungal, maxing out with Queen Hydra, and then when the Ultra Den is done, it's not bad to make, I think, about 5. I don't remember how many I make. There are 4 being made right now. Let's go in Carrier now. And the key thing that's really tough for Skytoss is remaxing. So if they ever lose a bunch of units, it takes them a lot of time to remake units, whereas Zerg can keep hitting 200 supply over and over again, assuming your economy is pretty good.
Yeah.
So 72.
It's a lot of queens.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like the queen spamming in the mid game to be safe against the Phoenixes. And then now, if they have cannons and stuff, you're not really going to be able to get up close and Neuro. So just fungaling the interceptors that go on top of your queens and hydras allows you to clean them up a lot faster. And they do very, very little damage to ultras. So the ultras are kind of the steamroll unit that just gradually moves forward and mows down the bases, but the queens and the hydras are the ones that are actually getting rid of the interceptors. And then once the interceptors are gone, the carriers are pretty much useless.
So you aren't necessarily trying to kill his army, you're more just trying to push him back and kill his bases.
Yeah, I'm just mowing bases, basically.
Okay.
Taking a base or 2 behind it, and now he's kind of slowly dying.
So do you bother with corruptors?
You
or
can.
Just rely on queens?
Corruptor is kind of a, if you identify the Skytoss early, it's a really good choice, because then you can get an attack upgrade and go for a critical mass of corruptors where you can one-shot carriers. But in this case, I was already pretty heavily committed to ground, so I just went for, this is more of the ground approach of dealing with Skytoss. The air approach would be double Spire, double upgrades, and you have a boatload of corruptors. But making ultras is still pretty good. Ultras and queens would still be a part of that equation. And infestors too. So the main point of decision is whether you want to make hydras or corruptors.
Okay.
Making both of them is generally bad because they have different roles. The hydras are the interceptor lawnmowers, and then the corruptors are trying to focus down the carriers because they deal bonus damage to massive.
Okay. Well, maybe we could actually step back in, because I mean, I did not go for the same composition, but it ended, I mean, the difference was I lost, but it ended much the same way. Carriers, Archons, that kind of thing. And I really did feel, I know it's almost a meme at this point, but I just don't, I have such a hard time with carriers. I mean, I built like a forest of spore crawlers and corruptors, hydras, ultras, and just still kind of felt like I died.
So you wanted to jump back into that game and see the last fight?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Maybe you could just kind of specifically point out what I could have changed there.
Okay. When your queens are all the way over at his base and so far from creep, shouldn't the opponent brought the carriers to your bases? Nah, carriers are really slow for base racing. It's not usually a great choice. Unless you have a mothership to recall. Okie dokie. So we're zooming to the last fight. I think one of the key problems is having infestors when you're pushing with those big armies, because DPS ends up being a pretty big problem. Carriers are super, super high DPS, and hydras are okay. Queens are kind of low DPS, and ultras don't actually help you kill the Skytoss army, they just tank for you.
Right.
Okay, so we're making some stuff. You did a good job making drones this game. And the Ling at the third is nice.
Cool, thanks. And this guy was really slow to take his third and his fourth.
Yeah,
which I felt like put me pretty far ahead. But just couldn't do much.
Yeah, well, one of the things with Skytoss and also with Turtley Mech is a lot of players, they don't have the mind to take the economy lead. They have a goal for a critical mass composition. Avilo plays the same way, where he plays very slow, and he's trying to craft the perfect army composition that's going to be able to win the main fight. So that's what this opponent is doing, and you might be mining more resource, but if your army composition isn't able to beat theirs, then they satisfy their win condition. So their win condition is a different one than yours. You have 74 workers to 61. They don't care. They're just sitting on their butt and making carriers, and as long as they can do that, they're happy as a clam. So, how do you dispatch a happy clam?
I don't know. I never do it.
Nice. Okay, this is where the ultras. We need ultras. Oh, you have ultra cavern. Good.
Yeah.
All the ladies need to be pulled too. Because how many? You have 5. That's 10 supply. You have to think about the supply very deliberately too when you're facing a maxed out Skytoss army, because this opponent has 55 workers, so what, 145 supply of army, and you have to kind of find a way to beat that. You have 75 workers, which means you're going to have less supply in army, so those queens really, really need to be on the front line.
So you pull even your creep queens or your inject queens?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you have, you should probably go up to like 5 to 6 bases at this point. I think you can make hydras off of that many bases without injecting and spend your money pretty well.
So, and you said corruptors and hydras is not a great idea?
Usually you pick one, because they have different jobs. Either you're trying to reach a critical mass of hydras that you can just mow interceptors, or you're trying to hit a critical mass of corruptors where you can one-shot carriers. And corruptors are countered by archons, so that's something to kind of watch out for. Ultras do well against archons, though, and hydras behind ultras can do their job pretty happily. And infestors counter archons. They can neural parasite, and the archons can do splash to the interceptors. So those are kind of your main tools. I've watched a lot of people, they'll think, oh shit, it's Skytoss, I need to make units that are good against Skytoss. So they'll do this like 50-50 corruptor hydra mix, and it kind of causes you to fail on both fronts, because you prevent yourself from hitting critical mass on either being able to focus down the carriers instantly, or being able to mow down the interceptors.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. Corruptor versus Interceptor is a very sad thing to watch. They just turn their heads around and they're not doing anything.
Right.
Because they're less DPS than a Hydra. If you're just looking at the basic DPS of Corruptors versus Hydras against the Interceptors, Hydras are way better. And you have Hydra upgrades. So they have 13 damage, 0.54 weapon speed. The Corruptor has, what is it? 14 damage with 1.36 weapon speed, and the bigger the number, the slower the attack. So Hydras do a lot more DPS to the Interceptors. What is it, double? It's around double. So double the damage. The Corruptors, though, deal really nice damage to Massive, so it's 20 damage to Massive instead of 14 with no upgrades. So they should always be focusing Mothership or Carrier or Tempest. Those are the main targets for a Corruptor, or doing their caustic spray on a building or something.
So in this scenario here, should I have just dove the Corruptors onto Carriers, or should I have not even been taking this fight?
Carriers or the Mothership, I think, is fine. And you want to think about your attack here kind of like a Terran would, pushing a Zerg's 4th base, where you've created a really nice spore anchor, and you want to keep baiting them into that, because that's where you're going to be the most successful. Right now, you're taking the engagement where they're going to be most successful, next to a Nexus with Pylon, Photon, Imbicharge, and stuff like that. So the Corruptors in this fight were basically dead supply, and Yeah, the upgrades could have been better. I think if you timed your attack with the +1 attack for the air, that would be really nice. You did pull most of your queens. Not quite all of them. Oh, I forgot to mention this. Make sure to queue up injects before you pull your queens. Because that also gives you a lot more larva income. And it's pretty common that you'll have a bunch of money so you can just make another round of queens. So, near 200 supply, pull all queens after stacking injects. And then the formation would be ultras way in the front, queens in the middle, hydras behind. We'll say hydras and festers behind, if you want to do that. The corruptors, I usually put them on a muta hotkey. So if you were going ultra queen corruptor, the ultra queen A moves into bases, and then corruptors on muta key focus massive units. So that's the difference in role. With the Ultra Queen Hydra, you can just A move that and transfuse ultras and then micro the infestors.
And in that case, you're not really diving on the carriers, you're just trying to kill interceptors and like push forward?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, fungaling clusters of interceptors, and then the Queen Hydra can focus them down really effectively. You would have won this fight if your corruptor supply was just in more Hydras, I think.
Really?
With the spores. If you kept baiting them back into the spores and you just had more hydras. Because it wasn't quite enough corruptors to kill carriers, and it wasn't quite enough hydras to kill the interceptors.
Yeah.
But the spore field stuff was a nice touch. And I know the feeling, I've been there before, where you make tons of buildings, you have a maxed army, and you pull them into the spores and stuff and still lose, and it's like, I have no idea what I did wrong.
Yeah, feels bad.
Yeah, but now you do.
Well, yeah, but then the other problem is that it's going to be forever before I get to try it again.
Do you mean forever as in we could do a game right now and figure that out?
Alright, fair point. Guess we could do that. Yeah, we could do that.
Okay. Well, either host a game on that map or pass me lead and I'll do it.
You can go ahead.
Party time.
Cool.
Protoss. And I'll probably try to go Phoenixes. Just to keep it real.
Okay, so just kind of play the same game that just happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
But my opponent expanded so slow and had 45 APM. Exactly.
I mean, I get that there's different ways to play the game, but I don't know. It can be frustrating.
I know it. Dude, it's the neurologist. What? I'm not a neurologist. What's up, Joseph Magosef? So we're practicing. In a world where there are no Protoss players left on the ladder, the Zerg coach must rise to the occasion. The spine crawler cubby.
Yeah.
Perfectly sized.
Yeah, I see the square now. I like it.
Perfect micro.
Also, I guess I'm metagaming a little here, but I'm usually super paranoid about cannon rushes. Probably, like, at least a third of games I play are cannon rush.
Two probes, or 2 drones on the probe, and then 4 drones per building. Where's your third?
Usually take a third at 30. Is that too late?
No, not if you're going for overload speed. I don't know, that doesn't look like all off to me. Crap. Is there discussion in the chat about whether cheese is good or bad? Dude, it's... if you think about StarCraft like a fighting game, it makes a lot more sense that there would be people who just try and attack someone as fast as possible and just get it over with. There's a kind of toxic sense of entitlement. Idra is the best example we have in the pro scene of someone who feels like everyone should play the game in the way that they play the game, rather than understanding what all the legal moves are and being ready for anyone to take any of the legal moves. If someone's taking illegal moves, like stream cheating or back in the days when map hacking was a thing, that's fine to bitch about, I guess. Doing the thing. Hey. So queens hold position by the spores. Versus sport to fort.
Couldn't get a drone over there.
Struggles. It's because my Phoenix skin is so awesome.
Yeah, those pay-to-win skins.
Yep.
Hate them.
Neuro's Skytoss build is better than your Skytoss build. Feels birthday, man. Think about the queens as a cohesive unit. They should all be together, and then you make other ones. Oh. Oh god. That's a lot.
It's the plan, right?
Yep. That's exactly the plan. I'm so proud. I got a little tear in my eye.
Oh, that's good. Something.
What? I don't have the carrier skin equipped? Shit.
You're screwed now.
Oh, we need a remake. Ah! Fourth place. Oh, dude. The new mothership skin is so good.
Oh, you do have it equipped.
Not the carrier, just the mothership.
Oh, the mothership.
But it's still pretty baller. Wanna be a baller, shot caller, mothership skin on my Impala.
Oh.
Oops. Crap. My phoenixes! What have you done?
I got him.
Fucking bugs. Monster resubbed. I forgot you existed. Sad enough my credit card didn't. Damn, savage. Window's closing. I'm getting to my composition.
I know. What do I do?
Ultra Queen Hydra Bling Bane Infester with 700 APM.
I don't have enough hotkeys.
I need more buttons on my keyboard.
Yeah.
We're gonna. Oh, the creep is here. I don't have an observer. Oh, free queens. Oh, what? That's a lot of spores. Okay. I'll put your stuff to the test. Where are your ultras? I have stormed it. Careful.
I forgot to make them.
Okay.
Made a cavern.
Very importante.
I forgot one of the things.
I'm killing some hydras for you, just to be nice.
Oh good, I actually needed some supply.
No problem. Okay, what are you gonna do against 20 carriers?
I have no plan.
See queens?
Oh fuck, I forgot. Forgot
ultras?
Forgot overseers.
Oh, go get some overseers.
Most toss opponents aren't as gracious as you.
Well, that's why I'm dying. With Protoss. I just want to go 3 Nexus before pool.
Right.
Oh shit. Okay. I'm gonna A move into your spore field, and maybe I'll storm. Do what you can, okay?
Sounds fun.
3, 2, 1. Ultras in the front. Oh, you stole my thing. What are your Hydra upgrades? +1.
Oh, yeah. +1, +2.
Crap. I think I got too many carriers. Let's take a look at that.
That was about how a normal game goes. From
Okay, so the
very,
key
very
thing...
representative.
Yeah, the key thing I think was I was just ahead getting to my critical mass because of the phoenixes versus the queens.
Yeah.
Hold position is, I think, the most subtle secret to having really solid defense that even people in mid-GM don't use very much. It's super, 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 super strong.
So they're just pinning your queens next to the spores?
Yeah.
Okay.
Think about, if you're going to think about a word to associate with your queen management, be disciplined.
Okay. Remember that.
So they should be disciplined. If there's going to be Stargate opener, which you did scout with your Ling at the wall, good job. They need to be hold the door, hold position against the spore crawlers. And then another thing, I don't know if we covered this in the replay against your previous opponent, the hatches should be rallied to the nearest base. You shouldn't transfer stuff between the bases unless you have a spore protecting that transfer lane, because the phoenixes are going to pick up what's between the bases. And as you move up in the ladder and stuff, the Protosses are going to find more and more of those openings. Because lower Protosses are more lazy, where they're not going to look for all the openings, they'll just like try some of the areas and then go AFK and make carriers. Okay, so you see your vision. You see double Stargate Phoenix. If you see double Stargate Phoenix, you should just go 2 spores, pretty much straight away. And I would go ahead and drop the spore here. So 1 spore here. Oops, I have your vision, so I can't ping. 1 spore between the natural and the third. Make sure you get creep connection. 2 spores per base, and they should be like 1 kind of close to this extractor and 1 kind of close to this extractor. So you have mineral line coverage and you have the Vespine coverage. And then you also want your queens on hold position just at the bases. So if you had 2 to 3 queens per base, 2 spores per base, you can just spam drones. So this hatchery is rallied to its own mineral line until the spore is done, and then you can fill both the gases. The main is rallied to the main, the third is rallied to the third, and you can take a 4th. That would be kind of the stepwise response here.
Okay.
So you lose 1, 2, 3 queens, and multiple overlords. And those queens are really important because you hit a sort of critical mass against phoenixes where they can't be productive anymore. So that widened the window, and now I can kind of annoy your 4th base for a long time. But if you had your queens intact, then right now instead of having 7 queens, you would have 10 queens, and you could push away my phoenixes easily. It would be very easy.
So would you, like, as the queens are popping, would you just hold position them and then eventually group them up once you have enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
And having the spore here would just make that whole process a lot easier. And getting creep here. Those 2 steps.
Yeah.
Creep connection versus double Stargate. The response to Oracle is the same. The only difference is you might have a 3rd spore. Kind of like the game against Roddy where I had 3 to 4 spores per base, if they make a ton of them. Because if you have 1 spore or 2 spores, they'll just fly their 12 oracles over your base and just try and kill it. So having 3 to 4 spores per base against the mass oracle, and then your queens on hold position, and then you can transfuse the spores or the queens, and they're going to take a bad trade.
Okay. And would you go hydras in that case at all, or?
I think Brood Infestor with Fungal is better against both Mass Phoenix and Mass Oracle, and it also translates well into fighting carriers. Because you build up energy for Neural Parasite, and you can also Fungal Interceptors. So that was one of the things that you didn't do in that last fight that I did against Roddy, was Fungaling Interceptors instead of Neuraling. The problem with Neural is the carriers can shoot from pretty far away, so the Infestors usually get kind of exposed in the process of getting close enough to a Neural. Whereas the Interceptors are on top of your Ultras and Hydras, so you can just Fungal those.
Now, does that kind of play into what you were saying about how, like, Corruptor composition is more for trying to kill the carriers outright, and then Hydras are more for Infestors, or for Interceptors? Like, would you prioritize Fungaling Interceptors when you have Hydras?
Yeah.
Versus Neuraling when you're diving in with Corruptors? Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, because the Infestors are supporting whatever your objective is for beating the Skytoss army. So you have the, I'm beating the Interceptor objective, and I'm beating the carrier objective. And by Neuraling carriers, you change the carrier count to be slightly in your favor, and then the Corruptors are trying to work on the rest of the carriers. Whereas, like you're saying here, if your choice is Hydra, then you want to be Fungaling to assist the Hydras in their goal.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Ultras coming out fast is pretty important because it's kind of a window that closes. I had more carriers than the previous examples. If you can hit it when I have like this many carriers and you were already pushing with ultras, I think I would lose. Okay. But you stayed on Hydras for a little bit too long. Hydras and Queens, you're basically maxed, so you could kind of start to try and trade. And another thing that you can do is aim for an area between the newest bases. So I think instead of pushing here, which is a low ground, up into high ground, if you pushed here, I think everything would have been better for you.
Okay.
Just because I have a high ground place to retreat to from where you pushed.
Right.
Which is really nice for air units.
Now, are the spores a wise decision in this case?
They're okay. I don't think they're super god tier amazing. It's not as important in terms of your stepwise priority as getting ultras out first.
Okay.
I think getting your first max out with ultras is good, and then adding on spores after that.
Okay.
Because the spores, I don't have to fight them right now. I can just sit and keep moving toward my critical mass goal, whereas the ultras can start steamrolling a base. The spores are kind of like, it would be nice if you would attack into me, thanks.
Yeah. I think my thinking was that you were going to try to take this base, which you obviously just took that one instead.
Yeah.
But
your creep spread, though, god tier. God tier.
Yeah, I'm usually good at doing some of the things I need to do.
Mm-hmm. And then managing this army composition is kind of hard. The thing that I do is like shift click or control click your Hydras, get all of them and put them like way the fuck back, because they're fast and they're really fast on creep. So if you A move, it's going to be like ultras and Hydras, salt and pepper derping around. You want it to be nice and clean. Ultras very clearly in the front. They can even be kind of a little bit silly in the front, where the ultras go through and there's a gap, and then the queens and then the Hydras go through, just to make sure everyone's in their proper line.
Now, do carriers prioritize units that shoot up, or will they just hit whatever rolls in first?
I think they hit whatever rolls in first, especially the carriers in the back. They can't even reach the Hydras in the back. Okay. So, yeah, let's watch and see what the interceptors do, because I'm A-moving. I'm not target firing here.
Yeah, but I also had my army exactly opposite of what it should have been.
Yeah, so you notice it's just concentrating fully on the front line. Like, it's hitting the spores, it's hitting the queens, and then the ultras are kind of in the back. You have 6 ultras, so if all of those are on the front, and then you fungled, like, look at that. That's basically three fungals, and I think you hit almost all the interceptors here.
Yeah.
So with your composition, this is technically a winnable fight, but the formation is wrong.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, honestly, I think I was just mechanically struggling trying to get all my hotkeys sorted and stuff. It's probably just something I need to practice.
Yeah, so let's talk about the formation versus Skytoss. Ultra is way in the front. Queen Infestor in the middle. I think I said Infestor in the back before, but I think Infestor in the middle is better. And then Hydra's way in the back. And it's better to have a little bit of extra spacing than to have Salt and Pepper Ultra Hydra. Cool. GG. I think that's a big improvement in terms of having a better kind of synergy in your composition than the Hydra Corruptor mixture. And then the next step will be getting good formation.
Okay.
So I don't know if there are people in the chat who are Protoss around diamond level. Maybe say so and can hook a brother up for some practice or whatever. But you can ask me too sometimes, because I don't mind playing Protoss every now and then.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I would love to play with anybody who's out there.
Mm-hmm. Another place you could look would be like a Protoss stream. If you just poked into Roddy's stream like, hey, is there a Diamond Protoss to play some games? People generally respond pretty well to that. And if they're a little above your level, that's pretty good too.
Yeah, I should prefer that even. Cool.
Nice. So I think... Is that an hour or do we still have some time?
I think it was about an hour.
Let's see the time slot. I'm going to attach the replay that we went over. Okay. counts.
Oh, you mean the Roddy replay?
Yeah.
Cool.
And there's also a, I'll give you a bonus, a Gate Robo Storm Tempest game, which is a little bit of a different composition, but kind of similar principle in going for corruptors.
Yeah. No, I struggle against all the Protoss compositions, so this is just one of them.
Okay. I'll try and get a replay pack out probably within the next couple days. Just
Okay,
so we
yeah.
have something fresh.
Cool.
Good working with you.
Yeah, you too, of course.
Go kick some ass, beat some Skytoss if you can.
One day.
Keep it real, dude. Swarm.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for the help.
Yep, peace. Nice. Alright, someone got banned. Uh-oh. Oh no, timed out. You should slit your wrists. Fuck IGN. Is that like the IGN? Is that a gaming website? Airtoss? What? It's just a cool army, dude. You don't need to poop your pants. Damn, dude. What